A new beginning in Boston. The morning fog rolled through Boston's financial district as Natalie Brooks stepped out of the subway station, her heart racing with equal parts excitement and terror. Today marked her first day at Reed Industries, one of the most prestigious development firms on the East Coast. At 28, she had finally landed a position that could actually use her literature degree while paying enough to support her sister. Emma's medical school dreams. The Reed Tower stretched 45 stories into the gray Boston's sky. All glass and steel ambition. Natalie smoothed down her navy blazer, checked her reflection in the lobby windows, and pushed through the revolving doors into a world she had only glimpsed from the outside. First impressions: Helen Porter, the receptionist with kind gray eyes and a warm smile, greeted Natalie like a long-lost daughter. "You must be Miss Brooks. Gabriel has been expecting you since 7 this morning." "Don't worry, sweetheart. His bark is worse than his bite." Natalie wasn't so sure about that when she entered Gabriel Reed's corner office. The space screamed success, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor, leather furniture that probably cost more than her yearly rent, and an entire wall of books that surprised her. Behind an imposing mahogany desk sat Gabriel Reed himself. He was younger than she expected, maybe mid-30s, with dark hair, sharp features, and the most intense blue eyes she had ever seen. Those eyes were currently fixed on a contract, and he didn't look up when she entered. "Miss Brooks," he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed. "You're 2 minutes early. I appreciate punctuality." "Good morning, Mr. Reed. Thank you for this opportunity." Now he looked up, and Natalie felt the full weight of his scrutiny. Those blue eyes seemed to catalog everything about her: her carefully chosen outfit, her nervous hands, the small silver locket that had belonged to her mother. "The test your references are excellent, though your previous positions seem modest compared to this role. Why should I trust someone without corporate experience to handle confidential matters worth millions?" Natalie had rehearsed this answer, but standing before him made her mouth go dry. "Because loyalty and discretion aren't taught in corporate training programs, Mr. Reed. They're character traits. My professors trusted me with their research. My previous employers trusted me with their most personal affairs. I've never broken that trust. You'll find that integrity doesn't require an impressive resume." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe even respect. "We'll see about that. Helen will show you to your desk." "I expect perfection, Miss Brooks. I don't believe in second chances." Late night revelations. 3 weeks into her new position, Natalie had established a routine that impressed even the demanding Gabriel Reed. She arrived at 7:30, had his coffee ready by 8, and managed his schedule with military precision. What surprised her most was discovering the man behind the intimidating exterior. "Miss Brooks," Gabriel called from his office one Thursday evening at 6. "I need you to stay late tonight. The Portland presentation needs major revisions before tomorrow." Natalie glanced at her phone, thinking of Emma waiting for help with her anatomy homework. But this job was too important to risk. "Of course, Mr. Reed." As the night wore on, she noticed Gabriel loosening his tie, running his hands through his hair when he thought she wasn't watching. The stress was evident, though he tried to hide it behind his controlled facade. Around 9, he emerged from his office to find Natalie still working, surrounded by revised presentations and updated financial projections. "You haven't eaten," he observed, noticing her empty coffee cup. "I'm fine, Mr. Reed. Just finishing the projections for Portland." Without a word, he pulled out his phone and ordered dinner from a nearby Italian restaurant, enough for 2. When Natalie tried to protest, he simply said, "Consider it a business necessity. I can't have my assistant passing out from hunger during tomorrow's presentation." Unexpected common ground as they worked side by side, sharing pasta and discussing market strategies. Natalie caught a glimpse of someone unexpected. Gabriel actually listened to her suggestions, really listened, and even implemented several of her ideas about narrative flow in the presentation. "You've studied literature at Boston University," he commented, noting her approach to structuring the presentation like a story. "Seems impractical for business." "Yes, Mr. Reed, but stories are how humans process information." Even financial reports tell a story if you know how to read them. Gabriel paused, looking at her with renewed interest. That's remarkably insightful. I studied business at Harvard, but my minor was philosophy. There's wisdom in unexpected places. Philosophy and business? Natalie smiled. That's an unusual combination. For the first time since she had started, Gabriel's expression softened. When I was younger, I wanted to teach. I imagined a quiet life in academia, writing, thinking, maybe traveling to small colleges. It sounds absurd now. It doesn't sound absurd at all, Natalie said softly. It sounds beautiful. The look Gabriel gave her then made her heart skip. It was past midnight when they finally finished. As Gabriel insisted his driver take her home, he paused at the elevator. Miss Brooks, the presentation tomorrow is largely your work. You should be proud. The bookstore encounter Saturday afternoon found Natalie at Beacon Hill Books, her favorite escape when she needed to think. She was browsing the American literature section when she heard a familiar voice. I didn't expect to find you here. She turned to find Gabriel Reed, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, holding a first edition of The Great Gatsby. Without his suit and tie, he looked younger, more approachable. Mr. Reed, this is my favorite place to relax, Gabriel, he said. When we're not in the office, you can call me Gabriel. And Fitzgerald is one of my favorites too. For the next hour, they wandered through the bookstore like two old friends. Natalie recommended books with genuine enthusiasm, and Gabriel listened with an attention he rarely gave even his most important business partners. If you love Fitzgerald, you should read this, Natalie said, pulling down a copy of Revolutionary Road by Richard Yates. It has that same tragic beauty about broken dreams. Gabriel studied her as she talked about the book, her eyes lighting up with passion. You really love this, don't you? Literature, stories, all of it. Books saved me, Natalie admitted. When I lost my parents 6 years ago and suddenly had to raise Emma alone, the stories reminded me that pain eventually transforms, that there's always hope for a new chapter. Something in Gabriel's expression shifted. I'm sorry about your parents. Raising your sister alone must have been incredibly difficult. Emma's amazing. She's studying medicine at Boo. She's smarter than I ever was. I seriously doubt that, Gabriel murmured. Coffee and confessions, can I buy you coffee? Gabriel asked as they left the bookstore. To discuss literature, of course. They found a small cafe on Charles Street, all exposed brick and warm lighting. Over cappuccinos, the walls between them began to crumble. Why business instead of teaching? Natalie asked. Gabriel stared into his coffee. My father built Reed Industries from nothing. He came from a small town in Vermont with only his ambition. When he died 3 years ago, I felt obligated to continue his legacy. But sometimes I wonder if I lost myself in the process. Do you regret it? I regret forgetting who I was before I became Gabriel Reed, CEO, before the board meetings and the million-dollar deals. Before I stopped reading for pleasure and started seeing everything as a transaction. Natalie reached across the table, her hand nearly touching his. It's not too late to remember. Gabriel looked at her hand, so close to his own, and then at her face. Natalie, this afternoon has been the most genuine conversation I've had in years. For me too, she whispered. The air between them grew thick with unspoken feelings. They both knew they were standing at the edge of something dangerous. Something that could change everything. The shift, when Gabriel insisted on walking her to the subway station. The late afternoon sun cast golden light across Beacon Hill's brick sidewalks. At the station entrance, they paused. Natalie Gabriel said her name like a question. Today, it was special. I know, she replied, her heart pounding. Monday, when we're back at the office, things should probably return to normal. You're my assistant. I'm your boss. I understand, Natalie said, though disappointment washed over her. But as she descended into the subway, she caught Gabriel watching her in the reflection of the station windows. Their eyes met in the glass for a long moment before he turned away. That night, both lay awake in their separate worlds. Gabriel in his penthouse overlooking the harbor, Natalie in her modest South End apartment, both replaying every moment of their afternoon together. Both knowing that something fundamental had shifted between them. Neither realized that this chance counter was just the beginning. that the feelings awakening between them would soon become impossible to ignore, leading them to a point where professional boundaries would shatter completely, and their hearts would face the ultimate test. An invitation to Cape Cod Monday morning arrived with the weight of everything unsaid between them. Natalie prepared Gabriel's coffee as usual, organized his schedule with her typical efficiency, but every interaction felt charged with awareness. Gabriel maintained professional distance, addressing her as Miss Brooks, keeping their conversation strictly business-focused. By Wednesday, the tension had become almost unbearable. That afternoon, Gabriel called her into his office with news that made her stomach flip.
"Oh, Miss Brooks."
Richard Montgomery wants to meet this weekend at his estate in Cape Cod. He's considering a $50 million investment in our waterfront project. This meeting is crucial, and it requires staying overnight Saturday. If this makes you uncomfortable in any way, I can ask Helen to arrange alternative accommodations or bring another staff member. Natalie's mind raced. A weekend trip? Just the two of them, after everything that had happened at the bookstore. She knew she should decline, should protect herself from the feelings growing stronger each day. Instead, she heard herself say, "I'll prepare the itinerary for Cape Cod." Gabriel's jaw tightened. "Natalie, I need to know you understand what you're agreeing to. This isn't just a business trip. After Saturday, after what happened between us, I need to know you're certain." "I'm certain," she said, meeting his intense blue eyes directly. The Montgomery estate rose majestically from the Cape Cod coastline. A sprawling property with white columns and ocean views that took Natalie's breath away. Richard Montgomery, a distinguished man in his 60s, with silver hair and a warm smile, greeted them with old-fashioned hospitality. "Gabriel, and this must be the brilliant Miss Brooks I've heard so much about," Richard said, taking Natalie's hand with grandfatherly warmth. "My wife would have loved to meet you both, but she's visiting our daughter in Portland. You'll have to forgive an old man dining alone with you youngsters." Dinner was served on the terrace overlooking the Atlantic, the setting sun painting the water in shades of gold and pink. Natalie found herself engaged in deep conversation with Richard about his vision for sustainable coastal development, her insights impressing both men. "Your assistant has a sharp mind." "Gabriel," Richard commented after Natalie suggested a modification to the environmental impact approach. "And she understands that good business considers human needs, not just profit margins." "Miss Brooks is exceptional," Gabriel agreed. And when Natalie looked at him, there was unmistakable pride in his expression. After dinner, while Gabriel and Richard finalized contract details in the study, Natalie walked through the estate gardens. The ocean breeze carried the scent of salt and roses, and the sound of waves provided a peaceful soundtrack. Under the stars, she didn't hear Gabriel approach until he spoke. Richard signed the contract. "The deal is done." Natalie turned to find him silhouetted against the lights from the house. "That's wonderful. Congratulations." He moved closer, and she could see his tie was loosened, his usual controls slipping. "I couldn't have done it without your presentation. Richard told me your ideas about community integration were what convinced him. I'm glad I could help." They stood in silence, the space between them electric with tension. The moon had risen over the water, casting silver light across the gardens. "Ellie," Gabriel's voice was rough, "I need to tell you something. Since that day at the bookstore, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. Not as my assistant, but as someone who makes me remember who I used to be. Someone who makes me want to be better." Her breath caught. "Gabriel, I feel it too. Every day in that office, pretending everything is normal when all I want is this." He reached out, his hand cupping her cheek with surprising gentleness. Natalie closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. The world seemed to pause, holding its breath for what would happen next. Gabriel's thumb traced her cheekbone. "You're so beautiful, and so far beyond just beautiful. You're genuine and kind and brilliant." Natalie opened her eyes to find his face inches from hers. "Gabriel," she whispered. He leaned closer, and she could feel his breath on her lips. Her heart was pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. This was the moment, the point where everything would change forever. Then, from the house, Richard called out, "Gabriel, I have someone on the phone about the Portland property. Says it's urgent. They sprang apart like teenagers caught by parents. Gabriel ran his hand through his hair, his expression a mix of frustration and something that looked like relief. I should take that call, he said, not moving. Of course, Natalie managed. Her voice shaky as he walked back to the house. He paused at the garden entrance. Natalie, we need to talk. Tomorrow, on the drive back, we'll figure this out. But tomorrow brought something entirely different. The morning after, Natalie woke early Sunday morning, her mind replaying the almost kiss in the garden. She dressed carefully in a soft blue dress and went down to breakfast, her stomach fluttering with nervous anticipation. Gabriel was already there, but the man who greeted her bore no resemblance to the one who had held her face so tenderly the night before. He was cold, distant, his expression carved from stone. "Good morning, Miss Brooks," he said formally, not meeting her eyes. The formal address felt like a slap. "Good morning, Mr. Reed." Breakfast passed in agonizing silence. When Richard noticed the tension and tried to include Natalie in conversation, Gabriel cut in with curt, business-focused responses that left no room for casual chat. The painful truth the drive back to Boston was torture. Natalie tried twice to start a conversation, but Gabriel cut her off both times with monosyllabic responses. Finally, about halfway home, he spoke. "Last night was a mistake," he said, his voice flat and emotionless. "We were tired. The setting was romantic. The wine at dinner lowered our guards. But it meant nothing. It cannot mean anything." The words hit Natalie like physical blows. "Gabriel, please don't do this. I'm your employer, Miss Brooks. You are my employee. Those are the only roles we can have. I apologize if I gave you the wrong impression, but we need to maintain proper boundaries going forward." Natalie turned to stare out the window, blinking back tears that threatened to fall. "I understand perfectly, Mr. Reed." The rest of the drive passed in painful silence. When they finally reached Boston, Natalie gathered her things quickly. "I'll see you in the office tomorrow," Gabriel said. Still not looking at her? "Yes, Mr. Reed." She didn't let herself cry until she was safely on the subway. Surrounded by strangers who couldn't know her heart was breaking, the unbearable. Office the following week was the longest of Natalie's life. Gabriel became even more formal and distant than before, addressing her only as Miss Brooks, communicating primarily through emails even when she sat just outside his office. When she had to deliver documents, he stared at his computer screen rather than acknowledge her presence. Natalie threw herself into work with fierce determination, staying late, arriving early, organizing every detail of Gabriel's professional life with mechanical efficiency. But at night, in her small apartment, she allowed herself to feel the pain of rejection. "Something's wrong," Emma said one evening over takeout Chinese food. "You've been crying?" "I can tell. Just work stress," Natalie lied. Emma studied her with the perceptiveness of someone who knew her better than anyone. "It's your boss, isn't it?" "Gabriel Reed. You have feelings for him." The use of his first name gave her away. Natalie's face crumpled. "It doesn't matter. He made it very clear nothing can happen between us. I'm just his employee, nothing more." "Then why does he look at you like you're the answer to every question he's ever had?" Emma asked gently. "What are you talking about? I stopped by your office last week to surprise you for lunch, remember? I saw the way he watched you when you weren't looking. That man is in love with you, Natalie. He's just too scared or too proud to admit it." The breaking point Thursday morning. Gabriel's mood had deteriorated to the point where everyone in the office was walking on eggshells. He had rejected 4 design proposals, canceled 3 meetings, and snapped at 2 junior associates. When Natalie brought him the revised contracts for the 3rd time that afternoon, he finally exploded. "What part of Section 3 formatting do you not understand?" he shouted, throwing the papers across his desk. "I've explained this twice already. Are you incapable of following simple instructions?" The entire floor fell silent. Natalie stood frozen, feeling the stares of every employee. "I apologize, Mr. Reed. I'll correct it immediately. You know what? Forget it. I'll have Helen handle it. Apparently, I need someone competent for this job." The words were deliberately cruel, designed to wound, and they succeeded. Natalie felt color drain from her face, but she maintained her composure. "Of course, Mr. Reed, if you'll excuse me." She walked to the bathroom with her head high, ignoring the sympathetic looks from coworkers. Only when she was safely behind the locked door did she let herself shake. Gripping the sink for support, Helen found her there 10 minutes later. "Sweetheart, what happened?" "I've never heard Gabriel speak to anyone that way." "I made mistakes on the contracts," Natalie said weakly. "In 3 months of working here, you've never made mistakes like that. And in 25 years of knowing Gabriel, I've never seen him treat an employee so horribly." Helen studied her carefully. "What's really going on between you two?" Natalie looked up, and Helen saw everything in her eyes. The pain, the confusion, the heartbreak. "Oh, honey," Helen sighed, pulling her into a hug. "Men can be such idiots when they're scared." "Scared of what?" "Of feeling something real for the first time in years." The search for answers that afternoon. Natalie found a note on her desk in Gabriel's handwriting. "I apologize for my behavior today." It was inexcusable. It was an apology, but it also felt like goodbye. That evening, Natalie updated her resume, searching job postings with a heavy heart. She couldn't continue in an environment where every day reminded her of what she had lost, where every interaction with Gabriel felt like walking on broken glass. She was just about to click apply on a position at a publishing house when her phone rang. It was Helen. "Natalie, is Gabriel with you?" "What? No, why would he be?" "He never came back from lunch. He has the board meeting in an hour and he's not answering his phone. His driver says he got out at the waterfront and told him to leave." Panic replaced heartbreak. "I'm on my way." Finding Gabriel, Natalie remembered Gabriel mentioning once, almost casually, that he sometimes went to a small bar near the harbor when he needed to think. A place called the Captain's Table. It served craft beer and had walls lined with old maritime books. She found him in a corner booth. Still in yesterday's rumpled suit, a half-empty bottle of whiskey in front of him, and a worn copy of Walden by Thoreau in his hands. "Gabriel," she said softly. Sliding into the seat across from him, he looked up, and she saw his eyes were bloodshot, his usually perfect hair disheveled. "Natalie, what are you doing here?" "Looking for you." "You missed the board meeting." He laughed bitterly. "The board meeting, right? Because that's what's important. Profit margins and quarterly projections and making my father proud." "Gabriel, you're drunk. Let me take you home, why?" He leaned forward, his voice breaking. "So I can keep pretending I'm not in love with my assistant? So I can keep lying about the fact that for the first time in 3 years, someone makes me feel like more than a bank account with a heartbeat?" Natalie's breath caught. "Gabriel, don't what? Don't tell the truth? Don't admit that I treated you horribly because I was terrified. Because every time I look at you, I want to forget every rule, every social expectation, everything that tells me this is impossible." "What are you saying?" Gabriel stood abruptly, swaying slightly. "I'm saying that everyone is right. Men like me don't end up with women like you. My mother expects me to marry Catherine Whitmore, whose family has been on Beacon Hill for generations. My board expects me to marry someone who can navigate country club politics and charity galas. And you deserve someone who won't drag you into a world that will judge. You for not having the right last name or the right connections." "That's not your choice to make," Natalie said, standing too. "You don't get to decide what I deserve. Then what do you want, Natalie?" Gabriel's voice rose with desperation. "Tell me what you want, because I'm drowning here. I can't think straight anymore. I can't focus on work. All I do is think about you and how I'm ruining everything." The bar had gone quiet, other patrons watching the drama unfold. Natalie didn't care. "I want you to stop pushing me away. I want you to stop deciding for both of us that this can't work. I want you to take a chance on something real instead of hiding behind fear and expectations." Gabriel closed the distance between them, his hands framing her face. "I'm a mess, Natalie. I've forgotten how to be anything but Gabriel Reed, CEO. I don't know if I can be what you need. So then let me be the judge of that," she whispered. This time, no one interrupted. This time, Gabriel kissed her like she was oxygen, and he had been drowning. The kiss was desperate, honest, full of weeks of denial and longing. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. "I'm so sorry," Gabriel whispered against her forehead. "I'm sorry for being cruel, for pushing you away, for being too scared to admit the truth." "We'll figure it out," Natalie said. "Together, together," he repeated, and for the first time in weeks, hope flickered in his blue eyes. Facing reality the morning after Gabriel's confession, reality arrived in the form of a phone call from his mother. Natalie was making coffee in Gabriel's penthouse kitchen, still wearing his shirt from the night before, when she heard his side of the conversation. "Yes, Mother, I know about the charity gala on Friday. No, I won't be bringing Catherine, because I'm seeing someone else. Her name is Natalie Brooks." Long pause. Then Gabriel's voice grew harder. "She works for me, yes. And before you say anything else, I love her. I'm done living my life according to your expectations." He hung up and found Natalie standing in the doorway. "That sounded pleasant," she said with forced lightness. Gabriel pulled her close. "My mother is arranging an emergency family dinner for tomorrow night. She wants to meet you. I can tell her no if you're not ready." "I knew this wouldn't be easy," Natalie said. "If we're really doing this, I need to meet your family eventually. They're going to be difficult. My mother has had my life planned since I was born. Catherine Whitmore has been the intended bride since we were teenagers. Does Catherine know you're not interested?" "Catherine and I dated briefly 5 years ago. It was pleasant and completely passionless. She's more interested in the Reed name than me personally. But our mothers have been planning our wedding in their heads for decades." The office announcement, walking into Reed Industries together Monday morning, felt like a declaration. Gabriel held the elevator door for Natalie, his hand briefly touching the small of her back, and the gesture didn't go unnoticed. Helen's eyes widened when she saw them arrive together, but her smile was knowing and warm. "Good morning, you two. Should I prepare for any announcements?" "Schedule a meeting with all department heads for this afternoon," Gabriel said. "It's time to be transparent about some personal matters." By noon, rumors were flying through the office. Some employees were supportive, others skeptical, a few openly disapproving. At the 3 o'clock meeting, Gabriel addressed them all directly. "I want to address something before speculation gets out of hand. Natalie Brooks and I are involved in a personal relationship. To avoid any appearance of impropriety, I'm transferring supervision of her position to our coup, James Patterson. Natalie will continue her work with the same responsibilities, but her performance reviews and compensation will be handled independently. This relationship does not affect her position here, and I expect everyone to treat her with the same professionalism as always." The announcement created mixed reactions. Some nodded approvingly at his transparency, others whispered behind hands, and a few looked concerned about the power dynamics. After the meeting, Helen stopped Natalie in the hallway. "That took courage, what you two are doing. Not everyone will understand, but love is worth fighting for." The family dinner, the Reed family home in Brookline, was exactly what Natalie expected. Old money elegance, antique furniture, and a dining room that could seat 20. Gabriel's mother, Victoria Reed, was an elegant woman in her 60s with silver hair, designer clothes, and eyes that assessed Natalie like a stock portfolio with disappointing returns. "Miss Brooks," she said coolly, offering a hand that barely touched Natalie's. "How interesting that you've captured my son's attention, Mrs. Reed. It's a pleasure to meet you." Gabriel's younger sister, Jennifer, was warmer. "I've heard so much about you. Gabriel hasn't been this happy in years. Don't let Mother intimidate you." Dinner was an exercise in passive aggression. Victoria asked pointed questions about Natalie's background, her family's social standing, her education, each question designed to highlight the gulf between their worlds. "So your parents are deceased and you raised your younger sister alone? How unfortunate. And your sister is studying medicine? At Boston University? Not Harvard Medical School?" "Emma earned a full scholarship to Boo," Natalie said evenly. "She's an exceptional student." "Sure she is," Victoria said in a tone that suggested she thought nothing of the sort. "Gabriel dear, Catherine called yesterday. She's still hoping you'll escort her to the museum benefit. Mother Gabriel's voice was warning. I've already told you, I'm bringing Natalie to a $5,000 per plate charity event. Does Miss Brooks even have appropriate attire for such occasions? Natalie felt heat rise to her cheeks, but before she could respond, Gabriel stood abruptly. That's enough. Natalie is my guest and deserves your respect. If you can't offer that, we're leaving. Victoria's mask slipped, revealing genuine surprise. Her son had never challenged her so directly. Gabriel, sit down. I'm simply trying to understand this sudden relationship. There's nothing sudden about it. I've been in love with Natalie for months. I was just too stubborn and scared to admit it. Hey. The words hung in the air. Jennifer grinned. Victoria looked like she had swallowed something sour. The turning point 3 weeks later, just as Natalie was beginning to believe they could make it work, her world shattered. She was at Gabriel's penthouse when her phone rang at 2 in the morning. Is this Natalie Brooks? This is Boston General Hospital. Your sister Emma was brought in by ambulance an hour ago. She collapsed at her apartment. We need you here immediately. The drive to the hospital was a blur. Gabriel insisted on coming, holding her hand as she tried not to fall apart. Emma looked so small in the hospital bed, an IV in her arm, monitors beeping steadily. Appendicitis, the doctor explained. It ruptured. She needs emergency surgery now, but Miss Brooks, there's a complication. Your sister doesn't have health insurance? What? She told me she had student coverage. She'd let it lapse 3 months ago. The surgery will cost about $40,000. Without insurance, we'll need a deposit before we can proceed. Natalie's world tilted. I don't have that kind of money. Can't you just do the surgery? She could die. We're doing everything we can to stabilize her. But for the actual surgery, hospital policy requires payment arrangements for uninsured patients. Natalie sank into a chair, her mind racing through impossible calculations. Her savings had maybe $5,000. She could borrow from friends, max out credit cards, but $40,000 was impossible. I'll cover it, Gabriel said firmly. All of it. Whatever she needs. Gabriel, I can't let you do that. You're not letting me do anything. I'm doing it because I love you, and because Emma is family now. Turned to the doctor. Proceed with the surgery immediately. Send all bills to my office. And I want the best surgeon you have. Proving love through action, while Emma was in surgery, Gabriel made phone calls. He arranged for a private recovery room, consulted with specialists about her follow-up care, and ensured she would have everything needed for a full recovery. Why are you doing this? Natalie asked as dawn broke through the hospital windows, because this is what love means. Not grand gestures or expensive gifts, but being there when it matters. Your sister's life matters. Your peace of mind matters. That's worth more than any amount of money. Emma's surgery was successful. When she woke up that afternoon, groggy but alive, she found Natalie and Gabriel both by her bedside. What happened? Emma mumbled. You're going to be fine, Natalie said, tears streaming down her face. Gabriel saved you, not me, Gabriel corrected. The doctors. I just made sure they could do their job. Emma studied him through pain medication haze. You really love her, don't you? More than I knew was possible. The final confrontation word of Gabriel paying for Emma's surgery reached Victoria Reed within days. She arrived at his office unannounced, her face tight with disapproval. $40,000, Gabriel? For your secretary's sister? This has gone too far. Natalie's not my secretary. She's the woman I'm going to marry. And Emma is going to be my sister-in-law. Family helps family. Victoria's composure cracked. Mary Gabriel, you can't be serious. This girl has nothing. No family name, no connections, no social standing. You'll be a laughingstock. The board will question your judgment, then let them question it. I've spent 3 years building this company to honor Dad's legacy. But you know what? Dad came from nothing too. He would have loved Natalie because she's real and honest and kind. He would have been disappointed in me for caring more about social expectations than genuine connection. Your father wanted you to have every advantage he never had. No, Mother. Dad wanted me to be happy. He told me that the night before he died, He said he built the company so I could have choices, not so I'd become a prisoner to expectations. I choose Natalie. I choose love over convenience, authenticity over appearances. Victoria stood, her dignity intact, but her power diminished. If you go through with this, don't expect support from me or your father's friends. I don't need it. I have everything I need. After she left, Gabriel called Natalie. Can you meet me at the harbor? There's something I need to ask you. 6 months later, the small garden behind the community center in South End was decorated with simple white flowers and twinkling lights. No 500-person guest list, no $1,000 centerpieces, just 60 people who genuinely loved them. Emma, fully recovered, stood as maid of honor, crying happy tears. Jennifer was a bridesmaid despite Victoria's disapproval. Helen sat in the front row, beaming proudly. Even a few of Gabriel's business associates attended, having learned to respect his unconventional choice. As Natalie walked down the aisle in a simple but elegant dress, Gabriel felt his throat tighten. She was radiant, genuine, everything he never knew he needed. I never imagined this, he whispered as they exchanged vows. Never imagined feeling this complete. Neither did I, Natalie replied. But sometimes the best stories are the ones we never saw coming. Their first dance was to an old jazz standard, Gabriel holding Natalie close as if she might disappear if he loosened his grip. Any regrets? She asked. Only that I wasted months being afraid. We have a lifetime now to make up for it. Gabriel spun her slowly, both of them laughing. In the corner, Victoria Reed watched from the shadows. She hadn't come to the wedding, but she had come to the reception, unable to stay away completely. Watching her son's joy, seeing genuine happiness on his face for the first time in years, she felt her resistance softening. Maybe, just maybe, she had been wrong. The new chapter, Monday morning, Natalie arrived at a different office. She had taken a position at a literary nonprofit, finally using her degree to help underprivileged kids access books and education. Gabriel had encouraged the move, knowing she needed her own path. They met for lunch in the public garden, a new routine they had established. Gabriel brought sandwiches from her favorite deli, and they sat by the pond, watching the swan boats glide past. I have news, Natalie said. Emma got accepted to Harvard Medical School for next year. Full scholarship. That's incredible. She says she wants to specialize in emergency medicine. Says her own experience inspired her to help others in crisis. Gabriel squeezed her hand. She's going to be amazing, just like her sister. And I have other news, Natalie said, her voice dropping to a whisper. We're going to need to think about converting your home office into a nursery. In about 7 months. Gabriel froze. Then his face broke into the widest smile she had ever seen. Are you serious? We're having a baby? We're having a baby. He kissed her right there in the park, not caring about the tourists or the passing business people. This was his life now. Real messy. Perfect. Epilogue. 3 years later, the Reed Foundation for Youth Literacy celebrated its 3rd anniversary with a gala that would have made Victoria proud, though for entirely different reasons. Gabriel and Natalie had poured their combined passion into creating something meaningful, bringing books and educational opportunities to thousands of children. Their daughter Charlotte, 2 years old, with Gabriel's blue eyes and Natalie's dark hair, sat on her father's shoulders, clapping at the speakers. Emma, now a resident at Massachusetts General, gave a speech about how books had helped her family survive tragedy and how education transformed lives. Victoria Reed, who had eventually come around after Charlotte's birth, worked the room with her usual elegance, now proudly introducing Natalie as her daughter-in-law. Helen whispered to Natalie, "From that first nervous day in the office to all this, I certainly didn't." Natalie laughed, watching Gabriel play with their daughter. "I was just trying to pay my sister's tuition. You found so much more." That night, after the gala, after Charlotte was asleep and the babysitter had gone home, Gabriel and Natalie sat on their balcony overlooking the harbor. "Do you ever miss it?" Natalie asked. "The simple life you imagined as a philosophy professor." Gabriel considered the question seriously. "I used to think I had to choose between success and authenticity, between duty and happiness. But you taught me I could have both. I still run the company, but now it means something beyond profit. I still live in this world, but with someone who keeps me grounded in what matters. You saved me, Natalie said softly. No, Gabriel corrected, kissing her forehead. We saved each other. You reminded me who I was. I gave you security. Together, we built something neither could have built alone. In the distance, the harbor lights reflected off the water, each light a small beacon against the darkness. Their story had started in fear and hesitation, grown through challenge and doubt, and blossomed into something neither could have predicted: love. They learned wasn't about perfect timing or ideal circumstances. It was about choosing each other every day, about bridging different worlds, about being brave enough to fight for something real. And they had fought. Through social pressure, family disapproval, professional complications, and personal doubts. They had fought and won not because it was easy, but because some things are worth fighting for. As Gabriel held Natalie close under the stars, both thought the same thing. This was just the beginning of their greatest story yet.